On this bag making tutorial, I'm going to show you how to sew the pally pouch. Hi, I'm Emma from Studio 77. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new. The pally pouch is a free sewing tutorial and pattern, and you can find the link to the templates and the full step-by-step colour instructions down below in the description. You can also find there as well some timestamps so you can skip forward and go backwards as you need to throughout this tutorial. This bag is a phone case or bag for small items. You can wear it as a crossbody or even as a lanyard with a detachable and adjustable strap. On the back there are hidden strap connectors which I will show you how to do step by step. Or you can choose the easier method, which is fully explained in the instructions too. In this tutorial we're going to be using the green machine. You can also sew in place if you would rather, but we are going to be using rivets and magnetic clasps too. It's much quicker and easier to use the green machine, but like I say, you can stitch in place or use a magnetic regular clasp as well. But before we get stuck into this tutorial, do stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to tell you all about the collaboration that we have with Diane at Spencer Og. You can find a really cool pattern. Find out more about that over at the end of this video. So let's get started. So for this project, you're going to need some lining fabric. I'm using just regular quilting cotton. This one I purchased from Sewing Street. I will pop everything in the description box below so you can find out where I got everything. And then you're going to need your outer fabric. For this tutorial, I'm going to use a cork. You can use faux leather or vinyl, or of course you can use a quilting cotton as well. If you're using faux leather or cork or vinyl, you don't need to interface or stabilize your outer fabric. If you're going to use a quilting cotton for your outer as well as your lining, you're going to need to add interfacing and a stabilizer. I recommend that you use a woven interfacing for your outer fabric and a fusible foam or H640 stabilizer. You could use foam as well, although it could be trickier to get through your machine depending on your machine. With your fabrics chosen, you're then going to need 1.5 meters of 1-inch webbing. And then you're going to need some tools. I recommend you use clips throughout this project, especially if you're using a cork or vinyl for your outer fabric. That's going to not leave any holes in your fabric, whereas pins will do. You're going to need a lighter for fusing the ends of your webbing. You're going to use small snips and larger snips or a rotary cutter to cut out your pieces. You're going to need a pokey tool of some description. I have got this kind of chopstick style one to get into your corners when we turn it through. And then you're going to need some way of marking your fabric. Because I have dark fabric for my outer, I have got a white gel pen, and then I've got a regular friction pen which will go away with heat for my cotton lining. You're also going to find a quilter's ruler or a ruler useful for when we're doing the strap connectors too. And this is optional, but you are going to find it useful for this project. This is double-sided sewing tape, and this is for when we make the strap connectors. You're also going to need some hardware for this bag too. You're going to need 2 1-inch lobster clasps. You're going to need a 1-inch slider, and you're going to need 2 1-inch D-rings. I'm going to be using the green machine press, which is from the trimming shop, and together with that I'm going to be using some 8mm double capped rivets and the corresponding die. I'm also going to be using a hole punch that goes in the green machine, and I'm going to be using these rivet magnetic clasps as well, together with the dies that go with it. When we get to that, I will show you how to put those into the machine and how to use it completely. If you don't have a green machine, you can sew in those areas, but the green machine makes it a lot easier, a lot quicker, and you're going to love it for the simplicity. So the first thing you're going to do is download the pattern. Again, you can find a link to how to get that in the description below. And you're going to cut out the pattern pieces. You can see that there is a line to attach them. You're going to sellotape those two together. So it actually is only 2 pieces when they're together. You're then going to cut out your corresponding pieces. So we've got one outer piece, and that is again out of the cork, and then we have got one lining piece. This is also interfaced as well with a non-woven, which is your regular interfacing that you can get in any sewing shop, just to make it a little bit stronger for your lining. I've then cut out 2 again interfaced with the lining and 2 outer of pattern piece 2, and this is for your strap connector pieces. Now there's 2 different methods to this bag when it comes to adding your strap connectors. I'm going to show you how to do the slightly trickier one. You can also opt to go for the slightly easier one. There's full details in the pattern to follow along with that. Okay, so we're going to start off with making the strap, and for that we're going to need our 1.5 meter length of 1 inch webbing. You can cut a longer length if you are a taller person or you want a longer strap. It is an adjustable strap, so totally up to you. We're going to use our lighter and we're going to fuse the end of our webbing. Now this is nylon or polypropylene webbing. You don't want to do this with cotton webbing. If you're using cotton webbing, you can zigzag the edge, use fray check as well, or you can overlock the end, but ultimately you want to make sure the end is sealed so that it doesn't fray. With this kind of webbing, we're going to use our lighter and we're just going to put the flame gently along the edge to seal it. We're not trying to catch it on fire. If it does catch on fire, just blow it out. Also have a glass of water to hand so that if there's any issues, of course you can get rid of the flame. So we just, like I say, we just show it to the end and we do it on each end of the webbing. Then we're going to grab our slider and we're going to put one end of the webbing through the slider, through the bar in the middle of the slider, pull it out the end, and then we're going to fold it under by around about 1 inch and then under again so that it is like so. And then I'm going to pop a clip in there. I'm going to grab our green machine and we're going to pop 2 rivets in there. If you don't have a green machine, you can of course sew it in place instead. So I've prepped up the green machine with the hole cutting die inside. So I've marked on where I'm going to place my rivets, and the first one is around about 3/8 of an inch or 1 centimetre from the end, and then around about 1/2 inch or 1.5 centimetres from there and in the middle of the width of the webbing. And I'm going to just put that in my green machine and I'm going to press down, and when you've got your weight above it, it helps a lot and you hear it kind of crunch through the layers. Slightly trickier when you get closer to the slider, so you just want to hold that out the way like so. Then what you can do as well is you can use your lighter just to fuse those holes to stop the rivets from coming out of there. Obviously be careful if you're close to your plastic clip like that. Again, you're just showing it to the flame kind of thing. Then we're going to get our rivets. So we're going to change out our die from the hole cutting one to our rivet die. And these are the 8mm rivets. I'm going to grab 2 rivets, so we need a male and a female of each. So 2 males, oops, 2 females. I'm going to pop them into the holes we've just cut. And then we're going to use our green machine to press down. Now again, you could stitch that, you could stitch a rectangle and then a cross in the middle to make that strong too, but of course the rivets make it look really professional. So you just want to hold it down, it will sort of slot into the hole of the die, and then again use your weight above it and just press down once really firmly and you feel it kind of squish together. And then you're going to do the same on the other one. Take the clip out, like so. So with that riveted in place, we're then going to follow the webbing strap along, trying to make sure it's not twisted. We're going to place on our lobster clasp on the other end, the open piece of webbing, open end of the webbing. Follow it along, again making sure it's not twisted, and then it's going to go through one side of the slider and through the other, like so. Again, just double check that it's not twisted in any way. That's looking good. Find your other lobster clasp, pop it through the lobster clasp, turn it over. You want to have the back of the webbing on the opposite side to the good side of the slider, if that makes sense. So you're going to turn that over. Again, fold it under by 1 inch. And then we're going to mark the 2 holes and pop the 2 rivets in the same way as we did before. So there's our strap completed. We're going to pop that to one side and we're going to work on the bag itself. So for our strap connectors, we're going to take the back of them and then we're going to just mark 1 inch down the long length of each using our marking pen. Like so. And then I'm just going to work on one for a moment. I'm going to grab my double-sided tape and place it down the middle so that it goes over that mark we just made. It's clear, so we should be able to see the mark underneath. And we're going to fold each long edge in to meet that mark with the tape grabbing it. If you don't have tape, that's totally fine. You can just add clips along each edge, but this does make life a lot easier. Then I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine. I'm going to stitch along each long edge to keep it secure and in place. And I'm going to do the same with the other one too. And as this is top stitching, I'm using a 3.5 stitch length, but when I'm doing the structure, I will use a 3 stitch length. If I was doing this all out of quilting cotton, I would use a 2.5 for all my structural seams, but I'd still use a 3.5 for the top stitching. And I am stitching around about 1/8 of an inch or 2 millimeters from each edge. When it comes to the end, you can stitch along that short edge just to stop you having to do backwards and forwards on each side. With those stitched, we're going to grab our D-rings and we're going to place one on each, and we're going to pop a clip to hold that in place. And we're going to pop them to one side for later. Next, we're going to grab our outer pattern piece 1 with it right side up, and we're going to place our pattern piece on top. It's important that you've got these rectangles cut out because you're going to need to see where the placement for those are. You're going to grab your 2 lining pattern piece 2 strap connectors, and you're going to clip your pattern piece 1 to your outer in a couple of places along one long edge. Then you're going to lift up the pattern piece and you're going to lay your pattern piece 2 strap connector so that it is sandwiched between the pattern piece and the outer so that you can see it through that rectangle. And you're trying to make it roughly in the middle of your strap connector placement hole on each side. It doesn't have to be perfect, you just want to make sure that it's covered and has got a good amount each side, top and bottom. Then you're going to grab your friction pen and you're going to draw that rectangle on the back. So it's important that your lining strap connector is right side facing the right side of your pattern piece 1. Then you're going to carefully take your pattern piece off, making sure that you don't move those 2 small rectangles. Pop the pattern piece to one side and then you're going to clip that in place. It is easier using these longer clips for this, but you could use a little bit of double-sided and take that off after. I'm just going to move this one over slightly and redo that because I haven't quite caught that in enough and I want to make my life easier. That's a lot better. Then we're going to stitch around those rectangles with a 2 stitch length. I always have the needle down when I pivot to go in the next direction. With any luck, you'll hit your angle that you've drawn on. So with those stitched, we're then going to cut down the middle inside the rectangle. So you don't need to draw this on, but I'm just going to draw it on to show you. You're going to be cutting straight down the middle and then a fork at each end. And when you come to cut into these corners, you want to be getting as close as you can without cutting the stitches. The closer you can get, the neater your turning will be. Then you're going to push your lining piece through to the back, give it a good wiggle and help it to show where you want it to lie. So it will look like that from the front. I'm going to do the same on the other side. And then on the back, you want to have the piece, the end of the strap connector, which is facing that top curved edge, facing down. Point them both down towards the right angled bottom, because this is the flap of the bag. Then we're going to get our strap connectors with the D-rings on that we made earlier, and we're going to put them inside that hole, the facing that we have just made. Push them down as far as they will go, pretty much, like so. And then we're going to pop a rivet in each one to secure. And we're going to pop that in around about a centimetre from the top and in the middle of the strap connector on both sides. We're doing the rivet exactly the same way as we did it before, so using our green machine to make a hole and then pop the 8mm rivet in. You can put a little piece of Decaville on the back to make it even more secure, and if you don't have a green machine and you want to sew it, you can also do that as well. And we're going through all of the layers when we pop this rivet in. Next, we're going to grab our lining of pattern piece 1 and we're going to lay that on top. I'm going to clip it all the way around and I'm going to sew it all the way around, but I'm going to leave around about a 5-inch or 10cm turning hole, and that needs to be towards the square end bottom of the bag, of the pattern pieces. You want to be careful when you're clipping and also when you're sewing around the area where your strap connectors are, that you don't distort either of the pattern pieces. And I'm sewing that with a 1cm or 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. Now, I wasn't too happy how I sewed the curve on one edge of the flap, so I've just redone that. Because I'm sewing within the stitch line that I originally made, it's not going to make any issue or any kind of punch holes on the outside, so that's totally fine if you need to redo one side. Okay, now that we've got that all stitched, I'm then going to cut off half of my seam allowance so that I've got 1/2 centimetre or around about 1/4 inch all the way around. I'm also going to cut off triangles at the corner to make that less bulky. And when it comes to these curves, you can either use pinking shears or you can cut little triangles into the edges to help with that curve. That's what I'm going to do. So I will show you how we do that. So we're going to cut off half of the seam allowance, and then we're going to cut little triangles as we go to help with that curve. But like I say, if you have pinking shears, you can totally use those as well, or instead of. Now when you're cutting off the seam allowance, you want to make sure that you don't cut it off where the turning hole is. You want to keep that as your full seam allowance. Now that's cut, we're going to reach through that turning hole and turn the whole thing the right way out. This is where you're going to find your pokey tool really useful to reach through and just push those corners out. Don't be afraid, taking some time to get that really nice. Okay, next we're going to stitch along the edge with the 2 right angles, not the edge with the curve. Okay, so you're going to top stitch along that edge, and we're going about 1/8 inch from the edge or a couple of millimeters, and I'm going to use a slightly longer stitch length of 3.5 for this. Okay, so with that edge stitched, we're then going to fold in our turning hole, and obviously that is going to be around about 1 centimetre. If you did cut off your seam allowance, it's not the end of the world. You're just going to fold that in, obviously, by what you have left, so about 1/2 centimetre. But we're going to fold it in by 1 centimetre or 3/8 inch, so that that is all in place. Then we're going to find 5 inches or around about 12.5 centimetres up, and I'm just going to pop a little clip in there so that I know that that's roughly where it needs to be. Now you can adjust this according to how you want your pouch to be, but that is going to be the main area of your pouch. The top part is then your flap, which is going to fold down. Okay, but for now we're just marking roughly where we want it to be. You can see where your straps are on the back as well, if that makes any difference to your choice. But for us, we're going to do it 5 inches up from the bottom. And I'm going to clip each side going through those 4 layers. A little tip as well is if you push the lining slightly inwards, you can have less showing on the outside. Then we're going to stitch from one bottom corner all the way around the top down to that other bottom corner, not along that bottom fold. And you want to be careful with this because we are going through a few layers when we get to this kind of start of the pouch. So you may need to use a hump jumper to get through those layers, or you can also hand crank it to get over that hump too. So with that sewn, all there's left to do is to put in our magnetic snap, and to do that we're going to fold over that top flap by 9 centimetres. So I'm just going to mark that on so that I know roughly where that is. Of course you can adjust it how you want it to be. You want to make sure the edges are lined up nicely on the edge. I'm just going to use my gel pen, which will rub off afterwards, so that I know where the edge is to be. I'm going to put my hole in the middle of the top flap first, and I'm going to place it around about 1/2 inch up from that bottom edge of the flap, from this edge here, and it's going to be in the middle. So punch my hole in the place where I want it to be. Just want to triple check that that is in the center. Now, when it comes to the magnetic clasp, you do get 2 die sets with it. So you get 2 bottoms and you get the same, but you get them twice for the tops. And this is if you have 2 green machines, of course. So we don't need to swap out that top one, so I'm going to pop one of those away. I do have a full video on how to use a green machine and lots of tips and tricks and what I have found. I'll pop that in a link in the description, but I will explain how to do it for this magnetic clasp too. So we're going to need 1 male and 1 female part and the 2 caps. So I'll put those to one side. Take out my rivet die. Make sure I keep that with the rivets, very easy to get them lost or mixed up. Pop the top part in. And you'll see with the base parts that there is a female and a male, and they correspond with the opposing parts of the magnets. Okay, so I'm going to have, it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to have the male part on the top of the flap, so I'm going to pop that one in there first. But before we do that, I'm just going to come back to the pouch. I'm going to lay, because I've punched the hole in the top, I'm going to lay that on top, matching it up with the line that I drew earlier, so I know where the edge is meant to be. And I'm going to place a little dot through. Make sure I can see that really well, so that I have got that for when I come to that side of the magnet. Then I'm going to make sure that I put the flap in so that it is wrong side down, lining down. Pop the cap on the top because you want the magnet to be on the inside. Then I'm going to press down. Give it one good squeeze. It usually stays in the top like that. You just pull it out and there you go. We've got our magnet in. Really quick, really easy, and it gives that beautiful pro finish with the cap on the top. I have got a little bit of white showing there. I can just rub that off with a bit of water in a minute. Next, we're going to go ahead and do our other piece. So I'm going to pop a hole and then I'm going to come back and we'll change the die over. Okay, so I've made a hole in that bottom part of the pouch. Of course, we're not going through all of the layers. We're just going through the front part of the flap, so you want to make sure that you do that. Then I'm just going to pull out the bottom part of my die, bottom part of the green machine, pop in the new one which I have prepped up with the opposing side of the magnet. It's stuck in there because it's magnetized, and we want to have that on that top part. So we're going to lay the pouch so that it is right side down, find the hole that we've made and pop that rivet clasp cap on the back like so. Give it a good press just like before. Don't worry if the die comes out with it. It's a nice strong magnet. So there you go. As you can see, your pouch is finished. All you need to do is attach on your strap that you made earlier, and it is ready to pop in your phone, your keys, or whatever you'd like to pop in there for your day out. I really hope that you've loved this tutorial. Don't forget to check out Diane from Spencer Og Patterns. She has made a really cool sunglasses case or glasses case that is actually no sew using the same green machine. You're absolutely going to love it. You can find everything I have talked about in the description below. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do consider subscribing and joining the Studio 77 family. I'll see you in the next tutorial. Thanks for watching.